In the light of truth, with love as our guide, and with hope for tomorrow, we gather together to celebrate life and our service to the world. Good morning. We could do better than that. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's much better. Nice, beautiful day, holiday weekend. Please rise as you're willing and able and join us for our gathering song, number 347, Gather the Spirit. Good morning and welcome to the Miami Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And no, I'm not Shannon. I'm Linda Bagley. I will be your worship leader today. I do believe we have some special music.
We're missing the coffee maker.
There's the other percent. Our reading this morning, we remember them. In the rising of the sun, and in its glowing, and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind, and in the chill of the winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds, and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky, and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves, and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we remember them. So long as we live, and too shall live, for they are now a part of us, we remember them. And now for the lighting of our chalice. Memorial Day by Charles F. Flagg. In honor of those we have known and loved in the past, and recognition of the gifts and sacrifices they have made on our behalf, and in our sincere hopes that we may be worthy of their memory, we light our candles, we give our thanks, and we offer our prayers. Amen. And now stand as you're willing and able for our next hymn, number 103, For All the Saints. The children would like to come up for words of all ages. It is that time of the morning. The older children like to come up. We like to have you too.
Probably need a handheld one. Here it comes. Oh, Chris, you are on top of things. It is awesome. Thank you so much. Well, have you ever wanted to ask your teachers or your neighbors or even your interim minister some questions Maybe difficult ones, hard ones, or easy ones? Well, I got a list of questions from some of our young people that I have, perhaps very foolishly, agreed to answer this morning. So let's see how it goes. I understand you have chairs that people sit on, so I'm going to draw up a chair. Okay. So these are questions coming from our young people here or from the young at heart. And I thank Shannon Harper for gathering these questions. Okay, what is my favorite thing about living in Dayton? My favorite thing about living in Dayton is your walking paths and all the Metro Parks trails, and it has just been awesome the last 2 years. Different environments, you know, if I feel like a wooded area, if I feel like walking by a river, it's just been great. So thank you for asking, and you can think to yourselves what your favorite thing is about living in the Miami Valley area. Okay, another question here. Will our new minister be fun? Absolutely. I don't know Reverend Greg very well, but I would love to be in your shoes of getting to know him better and better. I have heard that he has the most wonderful speaking voice, that people could listen to him forever. So that's one way to begin to have a great relationship. And I know that you had a special Words for All Ages the Sunday when he was here with you. And I think that this congregation, including its young people, are set off on a wonderful adventure that will be great fun with Reverend Greg. And I am going to be watching you from your website. Okay. The congregation has a website, and a little secret is I lurk on it when I leave because I need to defriend people on Facebook and not have contact with individuals in this congregation when I leave, but I can still lurk on Facebook. Okay, what is my favorite principle of the 7 principles? I actually have lived most of my life before the principles came about, or almost half my life, because they didn't come about until 1985. And so sometimes I have to think hard to even remember the 7 principles. And they were written by human beings, many of them by Unitarian Universalist ministers. 2 of my good friends wrote. One wrote the 7th principle and the words to it, and another one edited one of the other principles. So maybe I would choose those because of my friends wrote them, but I don't think that's a good way to make your decision about what principle is your favorite. What I think I will say is that they all are important. Isn't that a minister type of thing to say? But I think that the most challenging ones, and that's another way, the ones that I have to work hard to keep, are the first one, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the 7th one, the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. And those, to me, they bracket the 1st and the 7th, and they are the important ones. All right, this one may have come from one of our youth, because it says, how many UUs do you really think it takes to change a light bulb? And you may remember back to our wonderful youth group that went on a work trip to New Orleans, and they came back and reported to us, and they had a number of wonderful jokes that Sunday. And one of the continuing gags throughout their presentation was light bulb jokes, because they had changed out light bulbs, regular incandescent light bulbs, for fluorescent ones in New Orleans, and that was part of their social justice work. So how many UUs do I think it takes to change a light bulb? Well, I'll do the typical thing. The light bulb has to want to change. And that's kind of an intra-minister answer, too. Okay, just a couple more here. You guys came up with some awesome questions, I tell you. All right. Why is church on Sunday? I love the thinking of these young people because church doesn't have to be on Sunday. I could imagine this congregation, this forward-looking congregation, having a service on a Saturday afternoon, for example, having a service on a Friday evening. I think it's on Sunday because we came out of a Protestant Christian tradition, Unitarians and Universalists, but it doesn't have to be. Many people work on Sundays in these days, and so I like your idea of thinking outside the box, and no, church services don't always have to be on Sundays anymore. Keep reminding the adults of that, okay? And the final answer is, where are you going when you leave MVUUF? I am very happy to tell you that I will be going to my first choice, and I was their first choice. I will not be telling you the name at this point because I'm still working in contracting with them, as I did with you all 2 years ago, and it's going very well, but if it shouldn't go well, I don't want someone to know that they were the second choice. I'm going to give you a hint. Well, 2 hints. One is it's closer to my 3 grown children who are in Illinois than Dayton is. And the second hint is it's not Columbus, Ohio. Many people expected, you'll just take a U-Haul up the road to Columbus. And to me, it was moving further away from my children in Illinois, so I didn't even apply. They have a wonderful new interim minister there. But those are my 2 little quirky things to you, that it's closer to my children in Illinois, and it's not Columbus, Ohio. So I will be letting people know in the forum in your newsletter when it comes out, because the people will be getting back to sign the contract on Tuesday. They're on vacation for Memorial Day. Thank you for some awesome, wonderful questions. I really appreciate it. The adults are going to have to really have stepped up to come up with as good questions as these are. And now it's time for you all to go to your religious education classes, and we will sing you out. Spirit of community, in which we share and find strength and common purpose. We turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of care all who need our love and support. We will now light candles in recognition of joys and sorrows, and we begin this time of honoring our joys and sorrows by singing together hymn 123, Spirit of Life, as those of you who wish to mark an occasion or a thought silently light a candle. Spirit of life. We are unique persons, linked together in covenant by love, by need, by our search for truth, and our commitment to help heal our world. What touches one of us touches us all, and we live by our shared concern and our gathered love. On this morning, we lift up in celebration that Anne and Jay have had the joy of celebrating 20 years of marriage on May 20th. We also lift up in joy and celebration good on the Irish who responded and passed gay marriage by a 2.2 to 1 majority in a reaffirmation of supported by the government and all political parties. Pride persists. We are a part of this web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all of the universe. And we are grateful for these sacred connections through which we remember, we love, we care, and we celebrate. So be it. Blessed be. Amen. It seemed appropriate on this Memorial Day weekend that I share with you, in a spirit of meditation and reflection, the words of Maureen Kaloran, who's one of our UU accredited interim ministers. In these times of violence, these times when every day assaults our minds and hearts with stories and images of news of bloodshed, of battles, of beatings, news of yet another young person killed for reasons that are only sometimes ascertained. In these times of violence, we become fatigued, saturated. Our hearts become exhausted as we open a screen or turn a page, to be assailed by yet another tale of humanity gone astray. In these times of violence, when so many voices are raised, fingers are pointed in easy or angry blame, it starts to feel like human life is cheap, that breath may not be precious, that death is just another word for something to be claimed. In these times of violence, it's easy to forget those who stepped forward from their families, from what may have been the gentle safety of their home. It's easy to forget those who transcend the challenge that could have held them down, and yet they come and step forward and raise their hand and say, "Here I am, take me, I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to serve, and if necessary, to lay down my life. I am ready. Take me. Let me serve in the Army, in the Navy, in the Air Force. Let me serve in the Marine Corps, in the Coast Guard, in the National Guard, in the Reserves. And yes, in this time when so many fingers are pointed, and yes, often justifiably blaming, we honor those who come forward with ethics and vision to say, "Take me that I may serve my local community as a member of the police." May we have the courage to dream of a possible peace. May we have the vision to step forward for justice. May we have the stubbornness to believe in ethics and in love. And we give honor to those who step forward, those who serve their community, their country, those who, when their name is called, stand willing to give their all to serve ultimately with their lives. May we honor, may we remember, may we bless. Out of this silence, in our mind's ear, may we hear in our inner soul, in our inner space, hear the virtual music of the Navy hymn, which was listed as one of the favorite songs of a person in this congregation. Some are old enough to remember that it was played at John Kennedy's funeral. Others remember it at the close of a television day with pictures of the various boats and ships of the Navy. As we end our time of meditation, may that tune echo in our hearts, in our minds. So be it. Blessed be. Amen. As Unitarian Universalists, it is our joy and our responsibility to support the work of this congregation, both within these walls and in the larger community. And this generous congregation sends a portion of its offering every Sunday to a community service agency. And during this quarter, it is the Wesley Center on the west side of Dayton that will receive our contributions. Be generous, good people, as our ushers receive your contributions to the work of this congregation.
Judgment Day, on the bloody morning of dawn, one tin soldier rides away.
Now the valley cried with anger, mount your horses, draw your sword.
And they killed the mountain people, so they won their just reward.
Now they stood beside the treasure on the mountain marked in red.
Turned the stone and looked beneath it.
Peace on earth was all it said.
Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end. There won't be any trumpets blowing come the judgment day on the bloody morning of dawn. One tin soldier rides away. One tin soldier rides away. One tin soldier rides away. One tin soldier rides away.
Dal and Hitch, you've brought us so much. Thank you. And I hope we also have appreciated the Lyric League that is newly formed, that shared our Where Have All the Flowers Gone. And I think that's also an initiative by Hitch and by Dal. Thank you so much. Well, you discover things about a congregation even when you've been serving as their interim minister for almost 2 years. I had not realized that Question Box Sunday really is not a known quantity here in this congregation. I would say 60 or 70% of UU ministers do a Question Box Sunday at least once a year, and it becomes a tradition and you get in trouble if you don't do it. But I understand this may be a first time for some of you to experience a Question Box Sunday. I'm traditionally where your minister often is, in your pulpit. But Question Box Sunday oftentimes has a little less formal setting. And I am hoping with Reverend Greg that you will do a lot with moving things around in this congregation on Sunday mornings or other times. And when I was in Akron, I remember that we had 2 rocking chairs. The worship associate had one, and I had the other, and the worship associate asked me these questions, and I responded back, and it was a question and answer type of thing. But we'll do it a little more traditionally here. So these are some of the questions that I received from congregation members, and I always think it's kind of interesting for you all to see what other congregation members ask. And I will do my best to answer them. The first question: do you and or other UU clergy persons consider yourselves or refer to yourselves or think of yourselves as preachers? If so, how come? If not, please expound on that a bit. Well, sometimes we don't get the choice of how we're referred to, and sometimes I say you can refer to me as anything except late to lunch, late to dinner, late to breakfast. I refer to myself usually as a minister. In some ways, I think it's because I'm a Northeasterner, and that's the name used for clergy most commonly in the northeastern part of this country. Preacher is used more frequently in the South, in rural areas, and in some portions of the Midwest. But I kind of like the word preacher. I've recently been sending my website, my packet out to congregations as they're searching for interim ministers, and my packet is divided into several parts: preacher, prophet, priest, which has to do with rites of passage and ceremonies, educator, and administrator. All 5 of those titles describe what I do as a minister. I like the word preacher in some ways because I don't speak some beautifully crafted essay on a Sunday morning. I preach. It's part of what my profession does, is preach. Let me hasten to add that I am not preachy. I try not to be preachy. And we UU ministers tend not to speak about personal morality, about drinking and smoking and swearing all that much, perhaps luckily. But part of what I do is to urge you all to follow ethics, to work for justice. And in a congregation where there are diversity of people from many different religious backgrounds, people in their past have called such people on Sunday mornings who stand up in pulpits as opposed to lecterns, the preacher. So I'm willing to accept that word, and I believe that we can use the words of some other traditions without changing our Unitarian Universalist practices. Another question, and you'll notice that in some of these questions, there's the assumption on the part of the questioner. I don't necessarily always go there with agreeing with the questioner. How did we evolve to be a more intellectual rather than a heart-centered religious group? The Unitarians had more organization than the Universalists over time in the 1900s and the 1800s. The Unitarians were those who had more formally educated ministers, those who were of a higher class, upper class, socioeconomically, those who had more money. And thus, I think that the emphasis came to be within Unitarianism upon the intellectual. I think it was more a matter of what was common in their class. They were a somewhat narrow class, those Unitarians, especially of the 19th century. The Universalists were more broad and inclusive. All are saved, none are damned, arms wide open, embracing farmers and small-town shopkeepers. Some ways, I think, in the 20th century, it was the personality type of the people who were attracted to Unitarian Universalism, who were more intellectual, perhaps, less centered on the heart. I think it also has to do that even today, our faith tradition is awfully geographically centered in the Northeast. And Northeasterners sometimes are talked about as being God's frozen people and not having so overtly the warm and friendly heart. But I believe that we are a faith of both the head and the heart, and let us hope the hands as well, reaching out to help others. We seem to have lost the more mystical Universalist aspect of our religion, this questioner says. How do you see us as Universalists? Well, here again is that head-heart split, and in some ways I think that's too easy a designation. It's not entirely accurate, I believe. I believe there definitely are elements of mysticism within Unitarian Universalist hearts. In some ways, I think it's the sociology from the mid-1950s on. In the mid-1950s, it was many times scientists who came amongst us, and they, at that time, found it difficult to see mysticism. Today, some of those who most are mystic talk to a person in higher mathematics or higher physics, and it moves over toward mysticism pretty soon. I think that the New Age movement in the 1970s brought some into our movement who were more mystical. And at that same time, Unitarian Universalists began lighting chalices and sharing joys and concerns and having water ceremonies. So I think there is a lot of the mystic in our faith tradition and not just the intellectual. Another very specific question. Did we adopt the 1960s encounter group idea of having a check-in? Well, if so, we were pretty late to adopt it because it really didn't come into Unitarian Universalism until the 1990s. It has to do with our governance when groups get together in committee meetings or in boards or program councils to do the work of the congregation. They remind themselves that we're not just a business meeting, that it's the whole person who comes to that gathering. And in order to be able to be fully present, it is important to ask yourself as you're settling down to share with those gathering as well what you are setting aside in order to be able to be here, to be present. I think it is a reminder that yes, there's the work of the congregation, but that's not the only driving force. Another question, a long one, I may answer just portions of it. What does it really mean to be UU? The questioner goes on to say, we have no theology, we have 7 principles, we have a covenant of right relations, but all that's required to be a UU is to sign a book. Who are we exactly? All that's required is to sign a book. When you all sign that book, you join a heritage and you stand in a tradition for which people have died. I often have asked folks, if you were accused of being a Unitarian Universalist, of living out this faith tradition today, would there be enough evidence to convict you? And I maintain that we do have a theology. We live in harmony with nature, not in domination over it. Humanity is not sinful and fallen. We don't believe in original sin, but often we could say in original blessing. We do not sit back and say, God's will be done. Rather, we act to make this world a better place for all people. We are not divided into the saved and the damned. We do not believe that one religion has all the truth. That's just my beginning of answering that question. I move on. How do we endeavor to live out our values as UUs? We have traditions, we have principles. How do we know if what we are doing is no longer within the definition of being a UU? Unitarian Universalism, as the theologian Sidney Mead once put it, Unitarian Universalism does not stand still, it moves. It goes forward, it grows and changes. I think that ministers are important in defining the faith at any given time. I think our UU seminaries are important in training those ministers, in writing those books and materials. I think it's important for local congregations of Unitarian Universalists to get together and talk about what's happening locally. What is UUism in southwestern Ohio? I think it's important for UU ministers to meet regularly and to struggle with this. And something I've not experienced here, I did in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think it's important for the local ministers, UU ministers, to swap pulpits once a year so that you get to see how UUism is defined in a larger context. Can you tell us a good UU joke? Well, I already did some with the young people about the light bulb. This one is maybe a little risque, and I'm not sure it's all that funny. I'll put it out there. It seems that there was a bridal shop that was making the nightgown for the brides to wear on their wedding nights. And there were 2 nightgowns being made, one kind of sparse and plain, not much fabric, kind of see-through, very light and airy. And then there was another nightgown made with swaths and swaths and swaths and yards of fabric. And someone said, well, gosh, these 2 nightgowns are very different for this wedding night, for this honeymoon. And the owner of the wedding shop said, yeah, that one with all the heavy fabric and lots of yards and yards of material is for a Unitarian Universalist couple. Because among Unitarian Universalists, seeking is just as important as finding. There's always the danger, as one is preparing to leave a congregation, that that's what you'll be remembered for. Two other quickies that I had to redeem myself if y'all didn't like that one. You-yous are those who knock on a door for no reason. You-yous are those who have people burn a question mark on their lawn. What ideas or suggestions do you have for attracting and retaining members? Are there specific things you've seen in other churches that seem to work? Some of you have heard me say these things, but it gives me one chance to say them again. Please have a lot of what I call easy on-ramp jobs, jobs that are easy to do, helping with coffee hour, helping be a greeter. This is important so that newer people who come in can get involved with something easy soon, early on. Our current president of the UUA, Peter Morales, said that we UUs need to repel fewer visitors. I tend to agree with him. Let us think in our minds about how it was for us when we first came to a UU congregation. Let us not go up to a visitor and fill them with our particular take on things. Let's try listening to them. Let us try to see the diversity of class and educational level already present in this congregation and not make assumptions about those who come to visit. Let our conversations reflect our values and not be judgmental, not any of that preachy stuff. My personal goal in each of the interim congregations I serve is to have television news present within the first 18 months of my service, and it was here, if you recall, when we did something noteworthy. On the Sunday when there was a large climate change march in New York City, we had our humble little march around the parking lot, banging on pots and pans. And Channel 2 covered us and heard Gary speak so articulately, unlike me, about climate change. Talk to other people during coffee hour. There are those who are lurking around the edges of our coffee hour. Reach out to them. Talk to them. Our covenant groups help to retain people, to deepen their understanding and participation. If you have excitement about what's happening here and having a good new settled minister and Reverend Greg is indeed exciting, share it with your friends. Invite them to the congregation. You've already heard me in columns in the forum speak about stepping up and stepping down. Those who are overly active, step down. Those who haven't stepped forward to do leadership, step up. And to those who are overly active, I say never do anything without having an apprentice, about having someone with you to learn whatever it is you're doing. I think the far-reaching visionary thing this congregation did to have create a congregational coordinator position in Kate Jacobs was a very important thing, helping to provide an infrastructure to membership here. And finally, I will share the idea that Peter Morales did in his congregations he served. and I'm not sure we'll get a chance to try it during my time here, perhaps Reverend Greg will, to have a 5-hour session, maybe 9 to 2 on a Saturday, or 3 to 7 or 8 on a Sunday afternoon, for those new faces, where there would be cameo appearances of the DRE and of the minister and of somebody who knows the history of the congregation and of the stewardship chair and of a board member, of social action person, who can be there and share with those newer faces what goes on here. In many congregations, people sign the book at the end of such a session. I have liked the idea as it's evolved over these couple years of having many different ways and places that people sign the book, because one size does not fit all. And finally, I would add that that little session for newcomers, a 5-hour-long session, involves food, because lunch or dinner is brought in by congregation members to serve them. I've really liked what Diane Colvin has been doing with our welcoming session, where she brings in another person from the congregation to share with the new folks and get to know them as they get to know another part of this congregation. Well, it's turnabout is fair play, I guess. And the final question is, a month or so ago, you invited the congregation to identify their favorite hymns. What are yours and why? For the lyrics, enter, rejoice, and come in, as some of you might gather, because the third verse says, don't be afraid of some change. The tune, lo, the earth awakes again, which is to Jesus Christ is risen today, the traditional Christian Easter hymn. And in closing, I say that my ultimate favorite hymn is the one I used at my ordination. I may have shared it with you somewhere. It's As Tranquil Streams That Meet and Merge, because its last verse is the following. Prophetic church, the future waits, thy liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that sets all free. And that sums up what the mission and vision of the church should be to me. Let us sing hymn 1010 from our teal hymnal, We Give Thanks. We give thanks for the special grace, for the trail leaves here and the far away words of the chair and the love and care. Oh, we give thanks for the special day. Oh, we give thanks for the special day. Oh, finally free and the far away as a great share and love and care. Oh, we give thanks for the special day. As Linda extinguishes our chalice, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our heart until we are together again. Please be seated, because I think we have a greeter coming forward. Yes. Handheld it is.
I'm supposed to be in the back of the room. Good morning, good morning. I didn't catch any visitors this morning, but I'm sure there are some here. So if you would please sign the book, I would appreciate it. And there's some packets out there about more about UUs in this congregation. Feel free to take one. And let's all gather and have some coffee and conversation and do as we were instructed.
May you go in peace and work for justice, holding in your hearts and minds those who have died in giving service to this country, to their communities. Shalom, salam, namaste, blessed be. Amen. Thank you, Linda, so much.